Hello peoples and popples, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Fiction&Flora, you can call me Flora, and today I will be sharing with you four fantasy books. Two of them I have read and two of them I have not. I am doing this because I had the urge to film for the first time in almost a year, and why not? If you've been following me for a little bit, you know that I am trying to expand my reading taste. So right now I'm just testing out different fantasy novels to see what I do and do not like in fantasy, so I can make better selections moving forward. In that effort, I have, like I said, read two books, and then I have two that I want to read coming up. I am trying to like grow that list, but there are quite a few fantasy books in the world, and so having to read through a bunch of synopses, especially of a genre that I don't necessarily interact with very often, is exhausting. So these are the ones I've picked out so far. And per usual, my phone is on. Starting off with my favorite book of this stack, and one of my favorite books of the year so far is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. It is gorgeous, and the cover art is by Carson Lowmiller. And honestly, I saw Travis Baldree posting about this on Twitter, and one of the things that made me want to at least read the synopsis was how gorgeous this cover is. And then I read the synopsis, and honestly it was donezo for me. I knew I had to read this book. And this is basically about an orc mercenary who decides she no longer wants to be in the mercenary business and finds a town and opens the very first coffee shop in that town. So it's about her getting a space, putting it together, trying to build this coffee shop in this community in a town that she's never a part of. There's some small hiccups here and there, but you know, it is just a slice of life, cozy book, and it really does feel like a cup of warm coffee. And another great thing about this is that there is a sapphic relationship. It's not the main point of the story, which I appreciate as someone who doesn't like romance being at the forefront in my non-romantic books. But it is there, and it's really sweet, and I really appreciate it. And not only that, but all the relationships that she makes is just really wonderful to see. So I highly recommend this book, and what it told me is that I do like fantastical worlds with different people. I don't mind a little bit of conflict, even though I'm also perfectly fine with a conflict-free book, don't get me wrong. So as far as fantasy goes, this one has taught me that I still enjoy the worlds of fantasy, and I still enjoy learning about them and world building, and that is always nice to know, because fantasy used to be one of my favorite genres when I was younger, and I don't quite know why it's not anymore. But really enjoyed this, really recommend it, 5 out of 5 stars. The next book is one of my most anticipated for 2022. I read it at the beginning of the year, and I kind of like zoomed through it. It's also one of my most disappointing books that I've read so far this year, and that might just be because I had really high hopes for it. I was really hoping this would be what got me back into epic fantasies and really like getting into it, and it was a good step in the right direction, but it was not that book. And that is The Starless Crown by James Rollins, and the cover art is done by jacket art by Archangel and Shutterstock.com, and then it was designed by Tim Green of Face Out Studio. I love this cover. I think it's a really cool cover, and honestly, again, I am a big cover buyer, so I was fine with this book. I enjoyed it for the first half. Like, the first half of this book for me was almost a solid 5 stars, and then the second half was like a 1 or a 2 star. So I split the difference and gave it 3.5 when I read it. This book follows, it's a multi-POV that follows a few people. The main character though is a young girl who grew up in this boarding school type deal. Like, she was adopted when she was young, and she grew up in this boarding school type deal, and then she discovers that she has the ability to talk with these animals that live in the same area, and this leads to the discovery of a bunch of other different secrets, and eventually she does end up linking up with a bunch of other ragtag people in order to escape from the crown, who are trying to kill her. That is the least spoilery way I can describe this. The official summary was, I mean, it's correct, but it just feels like it's not, the feeling of the actual summary isn't correct, but that's just me. Anyway, I was really excited about this book. And for the first half, I enjoyed it. The things that I didn't enjoy are kind of spoilery, so if you don't want to hear more about that, please feel free to skip forward to this point. I will put a timestamp in here. All right, I'm assuming everyone who's here wants to hear my thoughts. So the thing that really got me out of this book is, one, the ableism. So the main character starts off blind, and like before we even hit the halfway point, it just switches to her being able to see. There's an event that creates it, but I don't like when people are magically fixed. I personally would be perfectly fine with a blind protagonist, and I would like to see how they would come up with disability aids in order to help her on her journey, because she's the chosen one. She's got this power. Like, she can see through the eyes of her animal companion. Maybe that would be a way around it without actually giving her back her sight that she hasn't had since she was a baby, or having her more debilitated for a longer period of time, because they do it for a little bit where she's like having to reacclimate to having sight for the first, like, not even acclimate to having sight for the first time in her life. But it feels like it happens too quickly, and also I feel like that would be a very traumatic thing to go from one to the other, especially because it happened after she was almost sexually assaulted. I feel like there would be some trauma associated with that. But that was one of the things that really ticked me off. I don't particularly like when a chosen one, like, I don't like chosen one in general, but that's a big part of fantasy, so I can ignore it. But I don't like when the chosen one gets their abilities and is good at them immediately. Like, there's no training montage, there's nothing. It's, oh, she realizes she can talk to animals. Oh, she can control a lot. She can like control some animals. Oh, she is great. And I'm just like, that went way too quickly. The other thing is how reactive characters were. These are my big three. There are a few other small things, but the thing that made it, like, they were so reactive. We have trained military personnel, we have experienced criminals, we have people who have been in high risk, high intensity we have people who have been in conflict before, who are reacting, rather they are reacting to situations in ways that feel like this is the first time. They're quick to anger, they're quick to go forward and attack without thinking through anything, and you're supposed to be a military leader. Makes no sense. Those were my three big ones that were spoilery. So welcome back, our non-spoilery friends. And so basically what I learned from this book is that I enjoy a main character who has strengths outside of just physical strength. It also taught me that I need their reasonings to make sense in the context of the story, because like I said, some characters' reactions were just, they didn't line up with what the story was telling me their experience was. So but yeah, there are a few content warnings, and I'll just list off the ones I can remember off the top of my head. There's ableism, sexism, objectification, racism, because this is a fantasy book and they can't do without, misogyny, there's war, so all the things that come along with war, graphic torture and child abuse, and I'm sure there are many more that I didn't notice. I'm not particularly sensitive to any of these things, but they are things that I notice and I know that are big triggers. So just be aware. The next book is one that I don't know much about, but it had a fun tagline. So I picked it up, and that is Kings of the Wyld by Nicholas Eames. And I also like the cover art on this. The cover was designed by Lisa Marie Pompilio, and the illustration was by Richard Anderson. And I think it's cool. Very much made me want to read it. And based on the summary, this is about a team of mercenaries who after stopping being mercenaries have like kind of their friendships have drifted off. People have become complacent in their lives, but one of them comes back and is like, hey, we got to get the band back together. And so they get together and they decide to be dudes being bros doing a thing. That's all I know about this, and it sounds exciting because it sounds like there aren't going to be super high stakes. They're probably high, but I think someone said there's a little bit of comedy in this. I am interested. I'd love to see how this goes, because one of my favorite things when it comes to fantasy media, I don't really care about political intrigue because it's just not for me. But what I do love is adventuring. I love adventuring, and so I hope that's what the majority of this is. Going on adventures, doing things, but like without it being like, oh, if we don't do this, the entire world will end. You know, low stakes adventures. So I'm interested. I hope this is what I'm looking for. On the complete opposite spectrum, to completely contradict myself, I also want to read The Bladed Faith by David Daglish, and the cover is by Lauren Panepinto, and the illustration is by Chase Stone. I'm not gonna lie, this cover is not particularly enticing to me, but that's okay. Maybe for more experienced fantasy readers, it does attract them. This book I picked up because I went through all the tagged 2022 releases I could find on Goodreads in like October, and I read through all their summaries because I apparently had a lot of free time on my hands. But I read through all of them, and I was really intrigued by this. This one does have pretty high stakes. It's about a young man whose who is a prince, whose parents were murdered in front of him, and then he was kept prisoner in that court for many, many years. And then he is taken, he's freed by a rebellion, and they want him to become the figurehead and their main assassin. And he's like, yeah, for revenge, I'll do that. And basically we see how that unfolds and how that affects him and the cost revenge takes on him. And this interested me because honestly, I don't know why. I read the synopsis and I don't know what about it pulled me in. I'm hoping that it will show me more about I'm hoping that I do like it, and I'm hoping that it gives me more insight to what I am looking for from a high stakes fantasy, because I know that I like low stakes, because I don't know why I do, but I know I like low stakes. So I'm hoping this is a good way to find out what I like in high stakes fantasy, and help me more explore what I am and not looking for, much like the Starless Crown did. Hopefully it's great, but if it's not, then hopefully I can have concrete ideas of what I do and do not like within it. So those were the 4 books. If you have any recommendations that you think I absolutely have to read, let me know. If they are fantasy romance, probably not going to be my cup of tea. I have no problem with the romance genre in general. It's another genre that I'm trying to like slowly scoop myself into, but I don't really like romance in anything with high stakes. So if it is going to be a romance fantasy, have it be like a low stakes romance fantasy. So like there's no world ending event, there's no kingdom ending event, but like, I don't know, it's a mild inconvenience. And then I can read a fantasy romance. Or if you have any epics that you think I might be able to get into, or if you just have any cozy fantasies, especially if they're anything like Legends and Lattes, I am 110% interested. Throw them at me. Or if you have just a band of bros being bros. I have been recommended Six of Crows and things by Lee Bardugo. I've also been recommended the Cruel Prince series. I don't particularly find myself interested in YA, and the way they both were described to me do not again, particularly interest me. I do have plans to read from both of those series, just because, you know, maybe I'm making too fast of a judgment, but like, don't recommend those to me because it's already been done. Either way, it's good to be back. I don't know how often I'll be back, but you know, here we are. New city, same me. I hope that I will be posting more, but again, I make no guarantees. Either way, I hope to see you on any of my other socials. You can follow me on Storygraph, Goodreads, Instagram, and Twitter. I love how I forgot what the bird app was called. Anyway, have a great day and bye.